Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Business Educational Platform. Today we are going to discuss another chapter number 3, that is of validity of contract and agreements. So in today's lecture I will cover the introduction to contract, that include the learning objective 1, in which we will discuss the essential elements of a valid contract and different type of classification of contracts. In our next lectures we will cover the consideration and competent to contract. So before taking too much time, let us discuss what the contract is and what are the essential elements of valid contracts. So I hope you know the idea behind the contract. If someone will show willingness to do something, that is known as an offer or proposal, and the one who will accept that offer or will show his consent, that will be known as the acceptance. So it will be between the two parties, and if there will be the two parties and there will be some sort of consideration, then that will be known as an agreement. An agreement that is enforceable by law is known as a contract. So what are the essential elements of a valid contract? There exists the offer and acceptance, which we have discussed so far. Then we have intention to create legal relationship. We have separate chapters on each essential element of a contract. So we have discussed offer and acceptance. Now we will see other chapters as well, that include the intention to create legal relationship, capacity, competence of parties, free consent, consideration, lawful object, possibility of performance, certainty, legal formalities regarding writing and registration, and not expressly declared to be void. So let us see what is the explanation of these essential elements. We will see the chapters on each essential elements. We are just covering the explanation here, and we will cover all the elements with a separate chapter. So we have covered so far offer and acceptance. So a valid contract requires at least two parties, one making the offer and the other accepting it. So there will be the two parties. If there will be the two parties, certainly they will pay some consideration. If they will pay some consideration, that will be the agreement. An agreement that is enforceable by law is a contract. So I hope you understood the offer and acceptance and its explanation. Now we are moving forward to the intention to create legal relationship. Both parties must intend to form a legally binding relationship. If either party default, they should expect legally liable or subject to lawsuits. So if we are forming a legal relationship, so we must follow the rules, regulations that are supposed to be in the contract. If any party will refuse to accept these rules, then certainly there will be the lawsuits against that party. So there must be legal relationship between the two parties. If there will be no legal relationship between the parties, certainly if one will breach the rules and regulations, so other party will not do anything. If there will be the legal binding and we will pose any third party to it, then it will be helpful to obey the rules and regulations into the contract that are being accomplished. Then we have the capacity, competence of parties. So all the parties must be competent to contract. Competent means they must not be the minor, or they must not be the person of unsound mind, or the person disqualified by law. So who is the minor? Minor is someone who is below the age of 18 as per Pakistani rules. And the person of unsound mind is the person who's not well in mental condition. So we cannot form a contract with the minor. If we will form the minor, then there will certainly no any laws against him, and there will be no formation of the contract with the person of unsound mind, someone who is very abusive or someone who is drunk person. So we cannot formulate any contract with the drunk person or person who is of unsound mind. And then we have the person disqualified by law. The person who is already disqualified by law, we cannot make any contract with him. Then there must be free consent. Free consent means it must be free from coercion or threats. They must be free. So, as per book, consent must be given freely without any coercion, undue influence, fraud, misinterpretation, or mistake. If consent is not free, the contract becomes voidable, meaning the affected party can either enforce or void it. So, there must be free consent and all the things must be clear so that there must not be any fraud. So there must be transparency as well. If consent is not free, the contract becomes voidable, meaning the affected party can either enforce it void or not. Then we have the consideration. Consideration is every valid contract must include consideration, something of value exchanged between parties. Consideration is something that we pay or something that is most important, that has some value. So it is not necessary we may pay the money, but it is necessary to have the consideration that has some value. So it may be the building or any gold or anything, but it must have a value. So there must be a consideration available. Then we have the lawful object. The purpose or object of the agreement must be lawful. If the object is illegal, the contract is not enforceable. So we cannot formulate the contract against the government boundaries or the government things that are occupied by the government. So the contract must be lawful between the lawful objects. So the things must be lawful. They must not be the from the drugs or the things that are avoided by the law. So they must be the lawful objects. Then we have the possibility of performance. It must the contract terms must be possible to fulfill. If terms require an impossible act, the contract is void. So we cannot tell any person to bring the stars from the sky. So if we cannot formulate the contract that you have to bring the stars from the sky, so the possibility of performance become void. So it is necessary the contract must be possible to fulfill. If the terms require an impossible act, the contract is void. Then there must be certainty. What is the certainty? All terms including the object and consideration should be clear and determinable. So they must be certain. Then we have the legal formalities regarding writing and registration. Contract can be either oral or written. There may be implied contract that is formed based upon the body expressions, the body language. It is not orally done. So take an example of coolies. That if you will see on the train stations, you will find the coolies who take the baggage. If you will refuse them, then the contract become the it is become the cancel. If you are not going to refuse them, then it is certainly you have formulated the contract with them, and certainly you will pay some amount for the carriage of your bags. Then we have not expressly declared to be void. Some agreements are automatically void by law. Then what are the different types and classifications of contract? There exists the valid contract, there exists the void contract, and there exists the voidable contract. What is the valid contract? A valid contract is agreement that is legally enforceable. Both parties can legally enforce the agreement and it contains all essential elements. Void contract that cases ceases to be enforceable by law. Then we have the voidable contract, a contract that is enforceable only at the option of one party. If one party declares that it is unlawful, then it will be the voidable contract. So I hope you understood the contract and the essential elements of the contract. We will discuss them one by one with separate chapters, but I hope you understood the basic explanation behind them, and I hope you understood the different type of contract. So till now, Allah Hafiz, see you in next lecture. Don't forget to like, subscribe and press the bell icon button so that you can never miss any update from my channel.